Okay. Jay Duplass, let's talk about Transparent Season 2. Do you want to walk us through what was Josh's journey this year on the show?
Josh's journey, Transparent Season 2, has a lot to do with learning how to be a man. I think one of the great things about Josh, and what's fun to play him, why people are interested in him despite his terrible behavior, is that he has this desire inside of him to do good, to be a father, to be a husband, to provide good things for the world, to take care of people. He just has like zero skills, which makes it comical, and it also makes it, fun to watch. And it also gives him, at least me as a performer, like a long way to go with the character. But, when the creator and I were talking about Josh for Season 2, we really talked about this idea that Josh came from a family with 3 strong women and a man who was not present. And he felt alone in that family. And then it turns out later in life that his father, in fact, was a woman. So he came up in a family with 4 strong women, not really knowing how to be a man, how to actually do it well. So that's his journey in this season, trying to become a husband or a partner to the rabbi, trying to father the son that he figured out that he had, trying to have a new son, a new baby at least. So it's a lot of things happen to Josh in Season 2. He doesn't handle it very well. That's, I think, the game of the show. And it was really a pleasure to play it.
Do you have a favorite scene or moment from the season that maybe typifies that sort of journey of Josh's?
Yeah, there are a couple of moments in episode 5 when I am realizing that my son that was a surprise to me, Colton, is probably going to go back to his adopted family, and that ultimately I dropped the ball. That was really an interesting, wild episode. So many things happened in that episode. I'm trying to force the rabbi to wear a wedding ring when I haven't even proposed to her yet. I learned for the first time that my family knew about the adoption that happened and about Colton this whole time. They didn't tell me. So it's so much happens. But I think one of the really interesting things about that episode is at the very end, Josh's son says, "Hey, tell me if you want me to stay. Just say the word," and he can't do it. And it was, so interesting for me as a performer because every bone in my body wanted to take that kid and bring him home and take care of him and make up for lost time. But the way that Jill, the creator, sort of created that moment where Josh is just completely frozen, I didn't even really understand it. And she was explaining to me, like, this is the exact example of how the Pfeffermans are and how they become frozen into inaction and how these things unfold in the way that creates these giant nightmares that they live in. So that was an amazing moment. And I think my other favorite moment was an all is lost moment at the end of episode 7, where we have the huge family dinner. And at the end, Josh tells them that there's no baby, there's no rabbi, everything has been lost. And he leaves and he goes to the grocery store and just shoves his face full of, he breaks the fast essentially by shoving his face full of like grocery items in the middle of the aisle of the grocery without any regard to anybody else.
It seems like your 2 moments, you got one incredibly dramatic, emotional moment and the other a quite lighter sort of, or at least funnier moment. Yeah. And Transparent sort of made up of those 2 elements, these very big, weighty, dramatic sort of stuff and the sort of more fun comedic sort of side of the show. What are the 2 sort of sides of that coin do you prefer?
Well, I just personally prefer that they both happen. Like the grocery store moment for me was like a dark, painful moment, But I knew, and it did play really funny. People were giggling, and I could hear the crew giggling, and it was great to me. You know, when both of those moments happen at the same time, that tragic comedy. I feel like that's when you know you're involved in some really enlightened storytelling, and I think that's what's so great about Transparent. You know, it's this crazy combination of almost like soap opera unfolding of people's lives that is happening at a very high art level that also happens to be incredibly funny. I still don't totally understand how it happens and how she does it. I just feel lucky to be a part of it.
And you were saying about that moment where you were frozen, and you just can't tell your son to come back. Like, and you're saying how, like, it's sort of inside of you would have acted very differently to how Josh did. Like, you had to, you know, fight sort of your natural instincts. How else are you different to the character you play on the show?
I'm wildly different. I've been with my wife for 15 years. I have 2 young children. I grew up going to Catholic school and being overly responsible to everyone around me. I think Josh Pfefferman has sex with more women in season 1 than I've had in my entire life. I am wildly different, and it's very interesting because I also live on the east side of LA. I live in the neighborhood where this show is set, and it is very shocking to people when they see me at the grocery store with my kids. And I don't know what it is about Transparent, and it might just be in that east side of LA world where it feels very real. Almost everyone who watches the show says, I know that family, I know these people. And, you know, when they see me on the street, if I'm not with my kids, they don't say, hey, great show. They say, don't you fuck it up with that rabbi, because if you do, I will hunt you down and I will hurt you. You know, people very attached to it. And I mean, to me, it's fun and it's a great sign of things, but it is definitely shocking when they see me out and about with my family.
Playing such a different character to who you are, as an actor, do you need to try to find some sort of common ground or some sort of empathy with that sort of like different perspective, or is it just fun to play something different?
Well, it is fun to play something different, but it's funny when I hear people talking about how Josh is this, you know, destroyer of worlds and he's this raging asshole. For me, what I play is that little nugget at the bottom of it all where Josh is trying to do his best. He just doesn't have the skills to do it, so he's fucking up all over the place. So I'm always in touch with the goodness that is a part of him. And I guess that's probably why Jill Soloway, the creator, picked me, because this is my first big acting job. I'm crazy lucky to be involved in this way. The way that she picked me was we were at a party together, and at a party for directors actually, and she decided in that moment that I was the person to play him because she was having a really hard time casting this guy.
What was that like, sort of just your first did you audition for the role after she met you? Did you have to read anything, or you just had the job?
No, I resisted it because I was just about to start my own TV show, and I was, I had done little acting things here and there for my friends, but nothing on the scale of this. And she insisted that I come in and I read with Amy Landecker and Gabby Hoffman, who eventually become my sisters on the show. And we read the barbecue scene from the pilot where we're shoving our faces with barbecue and sort of messing with each other in the way that siblings who know each other better than anyone else ever will, the way that they do to force them to be their best and also just to mess with each other. And it was one of those readings where it was just magical the way that it unfolded, and it ended, and I looked over at Jill, and she was just like looking up at me with these arms and this face that were saying, who are you to deny being in this family? You're meant to do this. And so I just shook my head and I was like, okay, let's try this. But even then, Amazon was very new, and we felt like we were making a pilot for a web show in our neighborhood. I mean, it felt very much like making an independent film, you know, and we had no idea where it would go. And, you know, probably 7 months after that pilot was filmed, we were at winning a Golden Globe. And, you know, everyone was, even then still, I think people did not really know about the show. I mean, people in Los Angeles and New York knew about the show, but it was still a surprise to everybody.
What was it like, how's the awards sort of acceptance of your show been? Winning the Golden Globe, obviously incredible, but then at the Emmy Awards, Jeffrey Tambor winning, directing winning, and for Best Comedy Series, you were really in the race last year for that award too.
It's surreal. It is really surreal. And I think it's mainly just because of the homemade way that the show is done. Jill has really created a family for all of us. You know, I text and email with Gabby and Amy and Judith and Jeffrey on a daily basis. They've become like a second family to me. So to see us put on that platform, it's wild. It's just nuts. I've never, you know, I've never been involved in gigantic awards ceremonies like that. And it's a little overwhelming, but at the same time, I get to go through it all with my family, and we have a great time while we're doing it. And we all, I mean, I have to say, like, all of the actors in the show, it's our favorite show. It's, you know, she picked the right people. Like, this is our material. This is, if we weren't in the show, we would all be watching this show, binge watching it, you know, like crazy, because it is, we all love that sort of tragic comedy that's happening.
And I think whether you're a massive fan of Transparent or you're not a big fan of the show, when you look at the nominees for the Emmys for Best Comedy Series, it was different. It had a different voice than any of the other shows in that field.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Transparent definitely has a different feel to it. I mean, what's interesting is that I think it could also play in drama just as easily. You know, I think the fact that it does make people laugh puts it into comedy. It's got a 30-minute thing. You know, the categories aren't perfect, but yeah, it's an incredibly dramatic show. You know, and I think that's how we approach it, which is interesting for us, because when we're doing it, it feels like a drama. I mean, you know, there's a lot of giggling going on, but the way that we're approaching our characters and the storylines is fully dramatic.
And I think that's maybe what was the one thing that stopped you guys from winning Best Comedy Series last year. Was like when I think it was a close race, and when push came to shove, I think it's sometimes harder for some voters to tick Best Comedy Series for a show that's got a lot of drama. Like, because you look at the shows that have won, Modern Family, 30 Rock, The Office, Arrested Development, like, they're pretty pure comedies.
Yeah, shows that just guaranteed to make you laugh. And, you know, I think Transparent will make you laugh for sure, but it's also going to make you cry a couple of times per episode. And so, you know, we just feel proud that we're making a great show that, you know, not only we love, but is also at the forefront of the civil rights movement. I mean, you know, that is not lost on us every day. Like, the kind of feedback that we get when we're at these shows or just in public in general is so different from every other sort of fandom. I mean, you know, you get people coming up to you and saying, thank you, this has made it easier for our family to make a transition. Like, our daughter is 8 years old, and 2 years ago, she, you know, we refused to acknowledge her as a girl. And, you know, that's been incredible. I mean, even Caitlyn Jenner has mentioned to us that watching our show helped her do what she needed to do and helped her family through the transition, because they were able to watch it, understand it, laugh through it, and cry through it, you know, and it in a way, it's normalizing something that has seemed so otherly for so long.
And I think, like, if I want to, like, just sort of then argue against myself a little bit, say that I think what you were just talking about is exactly why Transparent came very close to winning Best Comedy Series last year, and why you might win it this year or in a future year, is because it does have that social relevance, and it delivers it in a, you know, comedic way. And stuff like that. So I wouldn't say you guys can't ever win the Emmy because you're not dramatic, but I wonder if that's sort of the negative, and the positive is that social.
Yeah, I think so. It was so new last year, but now it's pretty normal. I mean, like, we've had Norman Lear come to many of our events and sort of champion us, and I think you know, a lot of the work that he did originally was shocking at first, and then eventually it became normalized. You know, so I think what I love about the show is, like, I'm from the deep South. I'm from New Orleans, you know, here in the U.S. And my parents and all of their friends are all watching Transparent. And what's truly amazing about it is, of course, at first they came like, what is a trans person? How does this work? This doesn't make sense to me. After a year, they're all saying, oh, this family's just like my family. This is exactly how our family functions. And they've almost completely forgotten about the trans element. It's just become a show about people to them. I think that's a big victory, and hopefully now that all the shocking elements are sort of like, people have gotten used to them, hopefully they'll just see it as a great show, and we can get a win.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about Transparent?
Wow. I think that it articulates on a soul level, becoming your authentic self on a soul level is a matter of life and death. And that is something that I have always believed, and it's something that unfolds in every moment that we shoot it. And I think people feel that, whether they articulate it or not, they subconsciously feel that struggle to be who you are meant to be.
Yeah. What's been the most fun thing that's happened while shooting Transparent?
Oh my God. I think every time we sit down together as a family for dinner, we just crack each other up. I mean, there's a lot of funny people on set, and we act like a family. There's some drama, and we crack each other up, and it's so fun. I mean, it's just to sit down at that table with those people. We know each other personally so well. We know each other so well within the framework of the movie and our characters, the way that we mess with each other, the way that we love each other. It's a blast making the show. It's hard too, because you are digging deep with emotion at all times. But it's like an honor and a blast to do it every day that we do it. So I guess it's just a camaraderie of the whole experience.
Who's the funniest in the cast?
Jeffrey. I mean, I would say everybody, but Jeffrey is, his mind and how his mind works. It's so subtle, and it's so real, and he never does it outside of character. But there are so many times in the middle of even the most dramatic scenes where he will just drop this tiny little joke. For instance, in the season finale last year, when they're all having dinner and I walk in with my hulking white bread, you know, Midwestern son, and I introduce him to the family as Colton, Jeffrey looked over and said, Coton? 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 He couldn't get the name right. And it was literally, everyone was just like shaking, trying to get to the end of the take. And that's how he is. I mean, he finds the absurdity and the humanity. There's so much heart in it. He's a genius, and I look up to him every day.
He is one of the sort of big comedic acting geniuses from television. Where Big Larry Saunders show, Arrested Development, and now Transparent. What was it like to be acting opposite him on the show he finally won an Emmy for?
It was moving. Because, you know, Jeffrey is 70 years old, and he is carrying the mantle of this show, you know, and every day he shows up to work and wears women's clothes and gets a giant wig put on and all this makeup. He transforms and really puts himself out there, and he takes on the pressure of doing it right for the trans community. You know, we have a ton of trans people on our set. They've all become our friends. He feels that debt of responsibility to them, and he carries it every day. And to see him, to have watched him my whole life, and to see him come to fruition, and to see him merge these two sides of his life, because people don't know that in the 70s, Jeffrey was like a hard-hitting dramatic actor on Broadway in New York, you know? So he sort of merged those two worlds of, you know, high drama and comedy. And it's really like the fruition of his whole career. And I think for him, he didn't know that this was, you know, I think he thought, I had a great run. Larry Sanders was incredible. Arrested Development was incredible. I think this might be it. But to see it come together in that moment and to see him be rewarded for it is just, it makes you feel like the world is just. And it just makes me proud of my second dad. I mean, those are the feelings that we have. We just cry through those ceremonies when he wins.
And it's like you may have thought he'd have a third life, perhaps, and a lot of people probably would have thought it'd be another supporting role in a comedy, not a lead, like carrying a show, and being the central character lead actor in a comedy series, you know? Yeah,
and using his skills to really make the world a safer place for a lot of people.
Yeah, and who would have thought he found it so hard to win supporting actor all those years at the Emmys? He should have just been in the lead category.
Exactly.
Won that his first time. So, what for you approaching your character on the show? And we might wrap up with this one. Like I was speaking to someone today who said the thing they found interesting about your character was responding to the transgender issue. They found that the one that they felt was most sort of realistic or true to what, I don't know, they might feel or they might think or whatever. How did you feel about what role your character has played in sort of the trans movement, or at least the social awareness of inclusion and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think Josh is sort of the Judas of the show. He is the person who is the doubter. He is the person who calls out, "I'm not buying this." You know, the first half of the first season, Josh honestly feels like Maura is just trying to get attention. That's all she's trying to do. This is just another ploy. You know, she's 70 years old. She's got to do something to get our attention. So now she's going to become a woman? What is this? This is insane. And I think he really is the voice, the Archie Bunker of the show, the voice that checks in with all the doubters and validates those concerns and those worries. And it's a tricky place to be because, you know, we are actively trying to create a trans positive movement with our art. We are trying to make the world a safer place for trans people, but at the same time, it has to be real. And, you know, that's something that Jill and I talk about a lot, is that like Josh is going to have to call out a lot of the stuff that people aren't sure about. And a lot of the stuff, what I love about the show so much is that Maura is not perfect. She seems like she will be, but she is very selfish too. And Jill shows that, and shows that just because she's trans doesn't mean that she's like, you know, treated as a perfect person in television. And that's been a flaw of a lot of television. She is a fully formed, flawed human being. And yeah, that's Josh's job, is to call it out. And it's a little scary to do some of that stuff. I have to do some nasty things on the show, but the way that I feel about it is that I'm in service to great art and a great message, and I'm just I'll do anything they want me to do.
Yeah. I think it was Thomas was the doubting disciple, not Judas.
That's true. Thomas was the doubter. Judas is the one who hands over. That's true. Thomas is the doubter. Maybe he's Thomas and Judas because
a mix.
Yeah, because Josh also completes a lot of actions that that wrecks stuff. He tends to wreck situations a lot, which I guess is the Judas role. So he's a Thomas and a Judas.
Look, Jay, at this Catholic education coming into
that's right.
Coming into good use.
That's right.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Jay, all the best. Thanks for chatting with us. All the best for the Emmy Awards, Transparent Season 2 at the Emmys, and then Transparent Season 3 and beyond.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I feel honored to be on your show.
Yeah, no worries. It was great chatting with you.
You too, man.
Okay.